Well, let's get our bearings. Where are we? We're in Murchison Gym, Westmont College, Santa Barbara, California, North America, Western Hemisphere, planet Earth, solar system, Milky Way galaxy, universe, mind of God. Now that's how Emily signed her textbooks, an important Wilder's play, Our Town. And it's not exactly pristine theologically, but it's pretty good. And it comes close to something the Apostle Paul said to the Athenian philosophers on Mars Hill when he quoted one of their poets, Epimenides. And he said, "In him we live and move and have our being." Well, that's good. That's true. But there's a question here. What is this God? Who is the God in whom we live and move and have our being? I mean, a God who's described that way can be pretty distant and pretty abstract, like the Pacific Ocean, the atmosphere. He's uninvolved, he's uncaring. And that kind of God has a certain appeal. C.S. Lewis describes the pantheist's God. He said, "As a God who does nothing, demands nothing, he's there for you if you wish for him, like a book on a shelf. He will not pursue you. He's an impersonal God, a subjective God of beauty, truth, and goodness inside our own heads, a formless life force surging through us, a vast power which we can tap into when we want to." You may have met this God for the first time in Star Wars. Certain kinds of philosophers are attracted to this God. They come up with impressive names for him. Alfred North Whitehead called God the principle of concretion. Kind of warms the heart, doesn't it? Or Henry Nelson Wyman called him the integrating factor in experience. Paul Tillich, the ground of all being. Now, whatever truth is in these names, these gods are mainly for contemplation and discussion, but not for a relationship. They are not the God of the Bible. George Buttrick was right about these gods. He said, "The field of second-rate religion is strewn with the corpses of abstract nouns." That's not the God of the Bible. And not far removed from these gods is the God sociologist Christian Smith discovered to be the chief deity among teenagers in our culture. After interviewing 3,000 teenagers about 6 years ago, he said, "This is a God that, well, he's the religion of moralistic therapeutic deism." You've probably heard this over and over again. Its creed is, God created and ordered the world and watches over it. He wants people to be nice, good, and fair, as taught in the Bible and most other religions. The purpose of life is to be happy and to feel good about yourself. God doesn't need to be particularly involved in your life except perhaps to solve your problems. Good people go to heaven when they die, and when it comes to the crucial questions of life and faith, most who believe in this God shrug their shoulders and say, whatever. I was checking out some food at Trader Joe's last week, and I had an impulse buy on some chocolate stuff. And I remember going through the line, and I just felt kind of guilty about it. And I had to say to the checker, I said, that chocolate's an impulse buy. And he said, "Well, are you feeling good about yourself?" And I said, "Yeah." And I got really excited. I don't know what he believes in, but he got really excited when I said I felt good about myself on my impulse buy. But the point is, this is not the God of the Bible. Blaise Pascal was a very different kind of philosopher and a Christian, a believer who encountered God one night. What he could only describe of it was that it was a night of fire. He wrote about it in his journal. He said, "Fire. God of Abraham, God of Isaac, God of Jacob, not of philosophers and scholars. Joy. 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 Tears of joy. And this is life eternal, that they might know thee, the only true God, and Jesus Christ, whom thou hast sent." Now that's a lot more than the ground of all being, isn't it? And if this Christmas season has been about anything, it's been about this God, Emmanuel, God with us. The Word became flesh and made his dwelling among us. This is a God who is intensely personal. He has a will. He has opinions. Strong convictions about what's good and what's evil, what's right and what's wrong. He's there for you, but not like a book on a shelf. You don't tap into this God. You answer him. He pursues and seeks and confronts, and amazing. He's holy. He's a father. And how do you relate to a God like that? Well, the Bible says the wise place to start with this God is to fear him. In fact, to fear this God is to be wise. The fear of the Lord, says the Bible, is the beginning of wisdom. Psalm 111:10. Very much like it is Proverbs 1:7. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. That's where you start with this God. But we don't know what we mean by fear, do we? Well, we need to be clear about what it's not. It's not terror. The fear of the Lord isn't terror in the sense of the fear of standing before a firing squad or being locked in a room with the psychopath from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. That's fearing a bad thing. This fear is not phobic. It's not like my fear of snakes. Irrational, silly, phobic. But I want you to know I am so afraid of snakes, I don't want to get over it. So don't try to cure me. My sense of humor ends when it comes to snakes. But that's not the fear the Bible is talking about either. Respect, perhaps. But the fear of the Lord is more than mere respect and reverence, as some translators have rendered it. It's okay, but it's too weak. The fear of the Lord is none of the above, but it's like terror. In that whatever terrifies you focuses your mind, right? A firing squad focuses your mind. A psychopath focuses your mind. And so respect is like that. It's fear of what's important. The fear of the Lord is not the fear of a bad thing, but the intense respect, the terror-like intensity of reverence for a good thing, an important thing, a serious thing, something not to be trifled with. You've heard the story of the battleship that was coursing across the North Atlantic in a heavy fog. The captain saw a light out ahead, and since his ship appeared to be on a collision course with whatever the light was, he radioed immediately, "Alter your course 10 degrees south." The message came back, "Alter your course 10 degrees south." Irritated, the captain radioed, "This is Captain Dillard. I repeat, alter your course 10 degrees south." The message came back, "This is Ensign Collins. I repeat, alter your course 10 degrees south." Well, the situation was approaching a crisis. The captain bellowed, "This is a battleship, you idiot. Alter your course 10 degrees south." The message came back, "This is a lighthouse, sir. Alter your course 10 degrees south." That's like the fear of the Lord. This is important. This is critical. And so the topic sentence of the book of Proverbs is like a lighthouse. It's like Psalm 111. It's the fear of the Lord is the beginning of what? Wisdom. Good sense. And if you're not clear on this fundamental truth, you may be clear about a lot of other things. Your name, the kind of ship you're on, but you're headed for disaster. Money, intelligence, and good looks will just be part of the wreckage. Do you know that Jesus described himself as a stone, a big rock? And he said this about himself in Matthew 21. He said, "He who falls on this stone, me, will be broken to pieces. But he on whom it falls," speaking of himself, "will be crushed." There's another philosopher and theologian I like. His name is John Bailey. He offers this definition of God. Again, it's not strictly biblical, but it's good. He said, "The final reality and the ultimate fact of our total situation to which we need to be adjusted is God. That indeed would be my definition of God. God is he with whom we have ultimately to do, the final reality to which we have to face up, and with whom we have, in the last resort, to reckon. Chapel is about the fear of the Lord. It's about cultivating at times and places in the week, sometimes inconvenient times. Really. You know about that. I do. But inconvenient in the sense that a lighthouse can be inconvenient. It's in the way. But that's the point. It's precious. It points you to what's important. And so the fear of the Lord is about fearing or respecting in a terror-like intensity what matters. It also means respecting with terror-like intensity what's precious, what you love and cherish. I fear my wife in this sense. And I don't think I could love her, really, if I didn't fear her in that sense. That she is not to be trifled with. She is not to be disregarded. And so the command to love the Lord our God with all our heart, our soul, our mind, our being, and to fear him, well, they go together. I fear my children. When they were born, I was terrified. These little aliens came out of nowhere, and they were precious and beautiful and helpless, and they depended on me, and I loved them so much that I trembled when I held them. But that's the best I can do right now. So forgive me if I'm messing it up, but that's the best I can do to tell you that this is what the fear of the Lord's about. What's important, who's precious. A hymn writer in the 19th century, Frederick Faber, wrote a hymn that I love. My God, how wonderful thou art. I'll quote just a couple of stanzas. And ask yourself, if your God is this to you? Oh, how I fear thee, living God, with deepest, tenderest fears, and worship thee with trembling hope and penitential tears. Yet I may love thee too, O Lord, almighty as thou art. For thou hast stooped to ask of me the love of my poor heart. Yeah. This table focuses the mind, doesn't it? It was set by a God who stooped in all of his majesty and his holiness, his awful beauty, who has stooped to ask of us the love of our poor hearts. Do you know this God? Well, it's been our custom to celebrate communion at least once a semester, usually at the beginning, not always just then. And I want to say ahead of time, we come from a lot of different traditions, and we have different takes on this, and some traditions would forbid some of us to come to this table. That's fine. We just believe that in some way that eludes precise definitions, this is representative of, it is a sign of the body and the blood of Christ, broken and poured out for us. So if you can't come to the table, God bless you. Maybe you can't come because you don't know if you believe in this God. That's a good reason to stay away. But it's also a good reason to contemplate and wonder about it and to watch his believers come to this table. But the Lord sets this table. He has stooped to ask of our love by his great love. And we'll have stations folks will be standing in various places. The method will be intinction. You'll be offered bread. You can dip it into the cup. We ask you that you not talk during this time. That the only sounds we hear, at least for a while, will just be the shuffling of feet, people moving, and then we'll be singing. But this is not a time to talk. It's a time to think about this God. And then when we're done, we'll all be dismissed. But I want to invite the servers to come down to the front here.